Hello, welcome to my channel. Today I'm painting the fourth in my Paris series, the Basilica du Sacre Coeur. I hope you enjoy the video, and if you do, please like, share, subscribe. That helps my channel grow, and I'd appreciate it if you could take time to do that. It's such a beautiful building, the Sacre Coeur, and I wasn't confident I could draw it, so I made a black and white photograph and I used tracing paper. Even so, I didn't put in every single detail. I left a lot to the imagination. I painted a 9x12 canvas panel with titanium white and French ultramarine blue. And then I traced the outline onto my panel and painted it white with no detail whatsoever. Once I had the outline of the basilica, I reapplied my tracing paper and traced on as many details as I had put in the original sketch. As you can see from this photograph, the basilica sits right at the top of Montmartre, and there are trees around, but nowhere near as many as I put in my painting. I didn't want to do a lot of foreground in the painting. There's a lot of lovely architectural detail that I was completely overwhelmed with, and all those steps leading up to the mount, I just couldn't bear the idea of doing that. And so I've left a lot of how it looks out and left it to your imagination. And I replaced the steps with a nice green lawn. From the top of Montmartre, which you can reach by funicular railway, you get a wonderful view of Paris just streaming before you, laid out for you to see. It's well worth the trip. And also the Moulin Rouge is up there, not far away. And I think several other things I can't think of now. So I started off with my usual colour palette of titanium white, primary yellow, raw sienna, raw umber, French ultramarine blue, sap green, and alizarin crimson. Those are the colours I always paint with, but for this video I added a couple of different colours. I thought for the shadow on the dome I needed something different, so I added turquoise blue, which was quite opaque, and cobalt blue, which is transparent. Fairly transparent anyway. I don't know the exact level of transparency. I think the number on the side of the tube tells you that, but I didn't look. I sketched in some trees to blot out the wall and the steps. I really didn't want to be bothered with those. And I decided to paint the shadow on the dome and the left-hand side of the building first. I mixed up French ultramarine blue with some raw umber and some titanium white for a pale grey, and that's how I commenced. I didn't want to put the white on first, and you might notice I had gone over all the lines with a paint pen just to accentuate them. I'm going to be honest, the basilica itself was the most boring part of the painting. It was all white, and I spent all my time putting on white and then straightening it up and then adding a little shadow and then straightening it up again, and it just went on and on and on. So I thought I'd show you this bit because this is pretty much how it went all along. And then I'd show you how I painted the trees, because there's a little more detail in that. It's a little more interesting to watch. And really, this is it for the church. I used the same grey as the basilica shadow for the trunk of my trees. But this is not the only colour I will put on the trunk. I might use some alizarin crimson, some raw umber, or some French ultramarine blue. I like to get a lot of colour in there, in the shadow and in the highlight. Sometimes I put Naples yellow in for a highlight. It makes a great sunny patch. And usually my darkest is the raw umber, and I don't always go to that. I usually do a little planning ahead of my painting. That's a good way to start, is to have an idea of what you're doing, the steps that you're doing it in, straight up front. But I didn't with this painting. I was a bit, I believe I was still thinking I might attempt doing the stairs up to the church, but I didn't. When I paint trees, I don't paint every single leaf. I'm doing the foliage here, and I'm dotting on with an old bristle brush, rather large one. I'm dotting on a mid-tone green, the middle color. I'll put on a lighter color for highlight and darker color for shadow, and but I always start off bang in the middle with a mid-tone green. Sometimes I'll put on a highlight and then mix in titanium white to it and put a highlight on my highlight too. It just depends how the painting's coming along, whether I want it to look darker, more solemn, or whether I want it to look like a brilliantly sunny day. I honestly had not thought much about this foreground. I'm putting in some shrubby stuff, but I do take it out later on and put in lawn. I just had not planned out this painting well enough. I'm mixing in French ultramarine blue to my puddle of green, making it darker. I'm going to put in some shadow to show the foliage that's tucked underneath, that is in shadow. It gives a little depth to the foliage doing it this way. I usually do put the highlight on last. I'm using a small flat and raw sienna, and I'm strengthening up my tree trunks. It's not the last color that I'll put on. As I said before, I try to get a lot of different color in them to make them a little more interesting, because they are quite a large part of the painting. They are something that grabs your eye, and you want something that is interesting to look at, that has depth and texture. Putting on the highlight and shadow, putting in all the extra little color, the sunlit patches, the deep shades, are what give the painting form, and it makes the tree trunks look round and, as I say, more interesting to look at. I mix alizarin with some raw umber to give me a very dark red for the trunks of my trees. Quite often I use straight out of the tube alizarin, and it really makes things pop a little bit. I just love that colour. It's one of my absolute all-time favourites, and I try to get some alizarin in every painting that I do. I just feel it gives the painting so much liveliness. At this point in the painting, you can see the basilica is floating in midair. I have to do something about that, and I think at this point I was still sort of wondering if I'd done the right thing by missing out the steps, and if I should go back and attempt that, and I really couldn't make up my mind. But I think I come around to the idea of putting in more shrubs and just hiding the whole thing, and that way setting the basilica down. Well, as you can see, I carried on dotting foliage everywhere, and it did set the church down, no longer floating in midair, and I decided to go back to it and paint in some of the, I don't know whether they're windows or simply apertures, but anyway, I decided to put some colour in them. They needed a little strengthening. They just needed to actually look like openings. I don't know if they're glazed. It was so long ago that I went there, I just cannot remember. And you don't see it very well in the photographs. So I think these are sort of colonnades, and I don't think they're glazed. Okay, so this is where I decided my shadows needed something extra, a little something extra. I added turquoise and cobalt, and I put the turquoise down and then added the cobalt over it. Well, that's what I ended up doing. I don't know if I'm doing that at this moment, but I found that the cobalt being transparent just brought the turquoise down enough to make it look bright but shadow. And I really like the effect I got with that. I'm going to experiment with some of these brighter colours. I'm not used to painting with very bright colours, and I've been ignoring them up till now. I really liked the effect I got with the turquoise shadow. I thought it looked quite vibrant, and yet it did add a shadow. I put it on the base of the building too, because I thought it was shadowed by the trees a little bit. I really loved that. I decided I didn't like all the green shrubbery under the trees and that I needed some lawn in there. So I'm just using a light green and just sort of adding straight horizontal lines to give me some grassy areas. I think there is grass up beside the steps, and I'm not sure, there may be grass in other areas. There may be some kind of little park. I was there in the evening and I didn't really get to explore that much. We were just walking around Montmartre. And I remember walking from the Basilica to the Moulin Rouge, and which is also at the top of the hill. After I'd sat with the painting for a little while, I decided it needed some people, but of course I didn't turn my camera on for that. So I just, what I did was just do some little dots of colour to represent people. They're not really figures, they're little splodges of colour, blue for jeans, white for a top, little dark raw umber for hair, and they don't, if you look at them closely, they don't look anything like real human beings. But if you look at the painting with one eye closed, it actually looks like a human being wandering along the grassy patches. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. Well, that's my painting of the Basilica du Sacre Coeur. Basilica, I think it is, du Sacre Coeur. And I enjoyed painting it for the most part. I found painting the white church was a little on the boring side because it was so detailed, and I find it hard to do fine detail work. And but I pretty much enjoyed the rest of it. I hope you did too. If you did, please like, subscribe and share. That helps my channel grow and I'd appreciate that very much. And I'm going to paint some sunflowers, I think, tomorrow. So watch out for that one and hope you'll join me. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.